back from McDonald's, was there any mention of Nicole?
Yes.
What was-
The typewriter, that it was Nicole's. Yeah, if I
No,
could use it.
no anger or anything?
No.
I want to direct your attention to page 92, if I might, of the grand jury testimony that was conducted, I believe, by Ms. Clark and Mr. Khan. Do you have that? No, my question. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I want to direct your attention towards line 13 and 14. I asked you whether you gave that testimony before the grand jury.
As to just those lines, I don't have it before me, Counsel.
I think that the court should be allowed to see.
All right.
I'll give you a copy of that.
Very misleading.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I believe there was cautions against speaking objections.
Yes. And Mr. Shapiro, you are refreshing Mr. Kaelin's recollection as to which lines?
13 and 14, Your Honor.
And you direct the court's attention to the paragraph.
We have no objection to reading the whole thing. I'm just now beginning to direct his attention to one portion, Your Honor. I'm not-
Thank you, Counsel.
Mr. Kaelin, did you get a chance to read that?
Yes.
And does that refresh your memory as to what you said at the grand jury?
Yes.
And what did you say then?
Where do I
May I
start?
see, this is a marked copy of the lines and circles. Perhaps the witness could be given a clean copy to read from.
I don't think it's material at this point, Counsel.
That's not confusing, is it, that there's a circle of the area that I'm directing your attention to?
No, I
Well,
can
objection.
read it. Oh,
Proceed.
Does that refresh your memory
yes.
regarding that? And what did you testify to before the grand jury in that regard?
Do I read it?
Yeah.
Do I? From the top?
I'll read it from 13 and 14, then we'll read it from the top.
13, question. So it appeared he was walking towards the house?
No objection, Your Honor. I would ask that the word be read.
Go ahead.
Answer, yes. And then before that now?
No.
No.
Now, you didn't say that at the grand jury that he walked towards the house, but
Ms. Clark?
the,
Your Honor, I'd like that the court.
He's not finished on this area, Counsel.
I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. May I just have a moment, Your Honor? Now, you never specifically said that you were going into the house, did you?
That I was?
Yeah,
Wait,
that O.J. was going into the house.
Correct.
All right. And what were the questions right before that, directing your attention to the area of Rockingham and what Mr. Simpson was doing? You can just read those out loud.
Okay, the question it was, where was he when you last saw him? Answer, he was out of the car and turned towards the house. Then I was on my way. Question, was he moving towards the house at the time? He was, a symbol. I assumed in my head he was going in the house, but it was turned that way, and I didn't see any movement because I'm on my way. And I said, I'm going to my room.
And the next question and answer?
And I said, so it appeared he was walking towards the house? Yes.
Thank you. Is that the testimony you gave regarding that incident before the grand jury?
Yes.
When you were talking to O.J. Simpson about coming back from the recital, there was some talk about clothing, women's clothing, was there not? How Nicole and her friend were dressed at the recital?
Yes.
And was this done in a light-handed manner?
Kind of matter-of-factly.
And was the suggestion made, I wonder what they're going to be dressing like when they're grandmas?
So that they can't be wearing mini skirts or dresses like that when they're grandmas.
And did you take him to be serious with this or to be joking with this?
It was a point where, yeah, it was, I didn't take it to be serious. I mean, it was a comment that he made. I mean, it was a point that he was making about their outfits.
But you didn't take it to be a serious comment, did you?
Well, I didn't take it for me to be a serious comment. I didn't know. I don't think it was. It was a comment in that conversation. But
Do you recall testifying before the grand jury on page 60 about this area?
I think so.
Page 59 and 60. Do you have some clean copies here? Avoid any problems. 59 and 60, grand jury, please.
All right, let me see counsel in the transcript at the side door, please. That's correct. All right, we also had the one other discovery matter regarding a statement by Mr. Kaelin to an investigator for the defense. Any comments? The court has had the opportunity to review that statement. Any comments, Mr. Shapiro?
Yes, Your Honor. We believe under the reciprocal rules of discovery that these items are not discoverable and believe that they fall under no exception in the code, although we have had no objection to Your Honor reviewing those short notes.
All right. You don't feel that this is a statement by a prosecution witness, which they're entitled to know on the cross-examination as to the issues in the statement?
They're not impeachable. The statements are not inconsistent and offer no impeachment from what this witness has stated, so they're of no value, and they're our personal work product.
All right. Any other comment, Ms. Clark?
Yes, no, they don't have to be impeaching, that's not the test. And I don't know what they are, I haven't seen them, so I can't argue whether they're impeaching or not, but assuming council's characterization is true, that doesn't prevent it from being discoverable, and arguably if they are also corroborating, then of course they would be material to the redirect examination.
All right, I'll examine it a little more closely. I don't think we're going to finish with Mr. Kaelin on cross this afternoon.
Oh,
My cross?
Yes.
Yes, we're going to finish with Mr. Kaelin probably within the next 10 minutes.
All right, well then I'll need to take a closer look at this then. All right, let's proceed. Let's finish with the cross, and then I'll evaluate this to see, once I know what the totality of the cross is, whether or not there's anything in here that's relevant.
Right, maybe we're not.
15.
how late will we go today?
Hopefully till we finish.
Great, thank you.
All right, let's have the jurors, please. All right, let the record reflect that we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Brian Kaelin is on the witness stand undergoing cross-examination by Mr. Shapiro. Good afternoon again, Mr. Kaelin. You're reminded you were still under oath, sir. Mr. Shapiro, you may continue.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Mr. Kaelin, you mentioned that Mr. Simpson was tired on June the 12th. Are you aware of his travel schedule the week preceding that?
No.
Do you know if he was out of town at all?
The week before that?
Yes.
I don't think so. We went to the June 6th, that function, the pediatric AIDS.
So your answer is that you were not aware of his travel schedule. You know he was there on June 6th, but on June 7th or 8th, you don't know where he was.
No, wasn't aware.
And that would be your regular practice, not to know where he was. And if he was out of town, you wouldn't necessarily know that.
If he was not in the house,
Yes.
I wouldn't know he's leaving, but if he wasn't there, I would know, from Gigi, OJ's gone, he's at where, like that.
Okay.
But he wouldn't have to tell me he's flying out that day or whatever.
And also, when you're asked to give a 10-minute by 10-minute recitation of where OJ was on the 12th, could you do that for any given day? For any other day, could you tell where he was every 10 minutes?
Oh, no.
Could you do that for yourself?
Where I was the last 10 minutes?
Not today,
Oh.
but if I picked another day,
Oh, no.
account for your whereabouts every 10 minutes.
No.
About the lighting conditions at the Rockingham home of Mr. Simpson, the trees are all lit with professional lighting, are they not?
Yes, there's some lights yes. There's lights from the bottom, I think they go up.
And also at the front entrance, there are coach lights on either side of the door.
I think so.
And on Ashford, there's a large street lamp, is there not?
Yes.
And that street lamp illuminates the area of the driveway and the front door, does it not?
The street light, yeah, you can see the street light would light up part of the driveway just a bit, yeah.
And that's a very, very bright and intense street light, is it not?
Yeah, it lights up that corner, yeah.
You've previously testified, have you not, that you don't recall whether or not the lights were on downstairs?
Yeah, I was iffy. I think I said that I thought they were on there, maybe off, but I thought they were, I think I said they were off and on, then I thought the last thing I said in this testimony was that they were off.
Have you previously testified that you're not sure whether they were on
Yes,
or off?
I did, yeah.
And
wasn't
would
sure.
that be your best answer in this case?
That I wasn't sure, yes.
When, did you have any difficulty seeing the golf clubs and the bag in which they were being carried?
The one that I put in the trunk?
Yes.
No,
They were right on the bench outside?
they were laying down.
Did you notice if they were there when you went to McDonald's?
I didn't notice that.
Were the golf clubs in a type of bag that would cover the golf club bag?
Yes, I believe so. It was a Swiss Army bag.
And is it your opinion that the small bag that you saw on the ground, if empty, would be able to fit inside the golf bag?
I won't be able to say. I couldn't tell. I won't be able to know if that the other bag that was by the Rolls Royce. I don't know. I couldn't tell. It was a. I suppose if it was stuffed in there, it could have been. It could have been put in there.
Did you ever see Mr. Simpson pick up that bag?
No.
Do you know what other luggage Mr. Simpson has or owns or travels with?
Other luggage? What
Yeah.
he has? He has other luggage. I know he has other luggage, but I don't know.
Well, you said you'd never seen that black bag before. Have you seen any of his other luggage before?
No. It's just that he has luggage, but I haven't seen it.
So you don't know what his normal practice is in going to the airport with luggage, do you?
No.
Do you know what type of clothing he packed for this trip, if any?
I don't.
When you picked up the golf bag with the clubs in it, did you see any blood at the front of the driveway at 11 o'clock?
No.
Did you see any blood walking to the limousine?
No.
Did you see any blood anywhere at 11 o'clock that night?
No.
And it wasn't until the police officers the next morning told you to be careful where you walked that your attention was directed towards any blood. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
And it was directed by them. You didn't see this on your own, did you?
No.
You remember when we talked for the first time,
Yes.
and that was on the 14th of June?
Yes.
And at that point in time, do you recall me asking you what your recollection was of your conversation with O.J. At 9 or 10 o'clock that night on Monday?
On Monday, Monday the 13th.
Yes, the night before.
Could you show me part of it?
Yes, absolutely. Do you have a copy of this, Counsel? This is the interview that I turned over to the district attorney during the preliminary hearing. This is a transcription of it. Yeah, take your time to read it.
How many pages is that, Mr. Shapiro?
I think the interview, the transcription is, we have additional copies here.
Oh, I'm just curious how many pages.
I think it's well, let me just tell you what it is rather than. The transcript is 20 pages.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give Ms. Clark the opportunity to read through this. I think you'd probably be more comfortable if you're sitting back in the jury room so you can read or whatever. So we'll take a brief recess, probably about 10 or 15 minutes. Please remember my admonitions to you, and I'll call you back as soon as we're ready to go. Mr. Kaelin, you can step down. Please don't leave the courtroom. have it quiet in the courtroom, please.
Quiet means no talking. Quiet.
All right, Ms. Clark, are you prepared to proceed? Or do you need that copy to proceed?
I need that copy, Your Honor. Yesterday, when I was examining the witness, we referred to the transcript that the attorney's office prepared, that I had given to Mr. Kaelin to examine. The transcript that Mr. Shapiro was using today is one that his office obviously prepared. I have found several discrepancies. None of them were major enough for me to say, don't use this transcript. Nevertheless, I have not been able to track all of the inconsistencies. Now, on any given particular passage, I'm going to need an opportunity to examine and compare it to my transcript because Mr. Shapiro has never shown us that copy.
All right, but you
And
had,
ours is certified, this is not.
was this a tape recorded statement?
Yes, it is.
All right, did you have the tape recording?
We also have it, so there should be no discrepancy.
But no, the problem is that, of course, we cannot compare a transcript we don't have to the tape itself or to the transcript that we have. Mr. Shapiro pops that out today, at the last minute while he's examining the witness, and according to the witness, even he hasn't seen it. So we
Right.
don't know whether it's
Well, you'll have,
accurate, and it's not certified.
you've got a copy of it, or
Well, I will.
we'll have shortly. All right, and if there's any discrepancy, if we have the tape, then we have the ability to get actually what was said.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. All I'm alerting the court to is I will be asking for an opportunity to examine and compare mine to his when he refers to that transcript.
Sure.
Thank you. And with respect to the notes, Your Honor?
Yes, with respect to the notes, I have reviewed them and found them not to be discoverable.
On the grounds that they would not be impeachment?
On the grounds that they are not impeachment. And also on the grounds that they are not covered in 1054.3. In other words, it's not a statement by a witness called by the defense.
No, but it's a statement taken from a prosecution witness who at this point is being cross-examined.
Correct, but has not been cross-examined with regards to this yet.
With regard to those specific notes?
That's
But
correct.
the subject matter certainly of the notes being,
That's correct.
and so is the court's ruling that because the notes specifically have not been addressed on cross-examination, they're not discoverable?
Or under direct. That's correct. All right, Mr. Gallo, would you give one copy to Mr. Shapiro, one copy to Ms. Clark? Or do you have your own copies?
Yes, I do.
All right, then both copies are for Mr. Darden and Ms. Clark.
People's objection and Mr. Requesting results.
Noted.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make the court's copy of these notes, court's next exhibit in order.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, counsel. All right, let's have the jurors, please.
Same as it was when I started, 10 minutes.
Okay.
beginning.
Does that refresh your memory as to what we spoke about on the 14th?
Yes.
And did you have a clear impression as to what your conversations were the night before on the 13th with O.J. Simpson when you and I discussed it on the 14th?
Yes.
And after
I'm sorry. You asked me two questions. First one was the Tuesday and then the Monday, correct? If you could just repeat that.
Okay.
'Cause I was looking
All right.
at.
So you're not confused. We talked on Tuesday.
Yes.
And my question to you is, when we talked on Tuesday, after reviewing a transcript of that conversation, does that refresh your memory as to what you remember taking place on Monday?
Yes.
And what do you remember taking place regarding any conversation you had with O.J. Simpson on Monday between 9 and 10 o'clock?
That I said this.
Okay, and what did you say?
Read it.
If you don't remember it, you can read it.
Well, it was with the TV on, and there was a lot of people in the house, and I put an arm around him, and everybody was talking kind of to the TV, and it was kind of like everybody in shock.
Did he say he couldn't believe it?
I don't remember.
Would you refresh your memory again?
Oh, it's there.
Take your time.
And-
Take your time.
And he said he couldn't believe it,
And what did you say?
and I couldn't believe it.
And was everybody in shock at that time?
Yes, the TV was on, and a lot of people in the house.
Was everybody in shock at that time?
I don't know what you mean exactly by shock.
I'd like you to refresh your memory by what we talked about that Tuesday.
Yeah, shock is the word, so they're all, it was a very big thing, yes.
That Tuesday was your memory of the night before that everybody at O.J.'s house was in shock.
Yes.
And was your memory that it was a pretty quiet time there?
Yes.
And not many words were spoken.
Right, I wasn't saying much at all.
Nor was anybody else.
Well, yeah, at the time when I was there, not many people were speaking, but I left.
Well, you can only tell us about when you were there.
Yes. There was some talking like to the TV set, you know, because there was comments going on. I remember that, but
Were you alone privately with O.J. when you had any conversations on that Monday night?
no, there's always people around.
What about Tuesday? Did you talk to him on Tuesday?
No,
You didn't see him at all on Tuesday, did you?
no, I did not.
And you didn't talk to him?
No.
Did you learn that on the night of the murders, you told us that O.J. was tired, not looking forward to flying already. Did you also express knowledge that he had said his feet were stiff?
He might have had his feet on the table in the nook area. I could have said that.
Would it refresh your memory to look at the transcript
Yes.
on page 8, right at the middle of the page? You see where I'm referring? Let me help you out.
Next to the KK, it says OJ's mood.
Yes.
Okay. Tired not look.
Just read it to yourself to see if that refreshes your recollection. Mr. Shapiro.
Do you recall what you told me on Tuesday about O.J.'s mood and whether or not he was stiff?
Yes.
What did you say?
I'd have to check and ask the witness not to read.
Right.
Oh, I wasn't going to. Yes, that was a reference for me to take the jacuzzi because I said, oh, I know what it's like to be stiff. So, yes, his feet were sore.
And stiff?
And stiff.
Did you have a conversation with me on that Tuesday regarding the noise you heard outside?
On the interview?
Yes.
Yes, we talked about it.
And do you recall saying that you told the detectives it's probably nothing?
That it was probably nothing, yes.
And do you recall telling me in response to a question after you heard that noise, how much time elapsed between the time that you heard the noise and you next saw O.J. Simpson?
Yes.
And your answer was 3 to 5 minutes later?
Yeah, on that, can I say something?
Was that your answer, 3 to 5 minutes later?
Right.
I'm going to let him explain it. I just want to know if that was his answer first.
Okay.
Yep. Yes,
All right. And would you like to offer a further explanation?
yes.
What is that?
On that was 3 to 5 minutes was my part of the, and the rest of that I finished up. That's when I was talking to Rachel, and that's what I thought at the time was the questioning, because on the, where it says that it was me saying, so I hung up the phone with Rachel. It's on that, I don't know what page.
Would you look at page 18? It's on page 18. My question to you was how much time elapsed between hearing the noise and seeing O.J., referring to O.J. Simpson.
Right.
Do you see where that is?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
And do you see what your answer is?
Yeah, it's,
Does that refresh your memory as to what you told me on Tuesday?
that's part of it.
Okay, what did
No.
what did you say on Tuesday? That's my question.
That I was,
That's been answered.
Overruled.
it says about 3 to 5 minutes,
And what else does it say?
because that's when I ran out and saw the limo, and I told her immediately that I told her I got to check this out, check out this noise. I talked to her for maybe another minute or so, convincing myself that I was going to go out there.
Did you notice at any time that evening whether or not the Bronco had been moved?
No.
Objection, no, that's some facts, not the evidence that he ever saw the property that night.
Overruled.
Now, regarding the blood that was pointed out to you by the police officers, do you know whether or not that blood was there on Saturday?
No.
At 11 o'clock, when you last saw O.J. Simpson, did you see any injury to his index finger on his left hand?
No.
Did you see any bleeding on his index finger to his left hand?
No.
Did you see any bandage on his index finger to his left hand?
No.
Excuse me. Counsel wishes to.
I'm being corrected. I'm talking about the middle finger instead of the index finger.
Still no.
Okay, so for the same questions, you'd say, give the same answers for the middle finger on the left hand.
Is that yes?
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Have you seen any photographs of pictures depicting Mr. Simpson's left hand on that night or the next day?
Did I see
Have
picture?
you? Have you seen any photographs? Anybody
Yes.
showed you any photographs? Did you see his finger in that condition at 11 o'clock on the night that he left for Chicago.
I think that question's vague because we don't know what photograph he's referring to.
May we put the photograph up on the Elmo, the People's Exhibit, Your Honor?
Foundation.
All right.
Mr. Kaelin, who showed you a picture of the defendant's left hand?
No one showed me. I was at an interview in your office.
And how did you happen to see a photograph of the defendant's left hand in my office?
It was on the table,
On what table?
on your desk.
And how did you happen to look over on my desk and see it?
I was sitting there and waiting. We're going to talk, and it was right there.
Was I there?
Yes.
And what was were we discussing the photograph?
No.
Was I talking to someone else about the photograph?
No.
You just happened to glance at it?
Yes.
And can you describe what you were able to see?
I could just see it was a picture of a finger.
Okay, and how close were you to that photograph?
Probably what this paper is.
For the record.
18 inches.
Okay. And how much detail were you able to see of that photograph? Can you describe it now for us?
Not much detail. I just knew it was a finger, a picture of a finger.
Okay. And so if you were to be shown several pictures of a man's finger, would you know which one it was? Could you pick it out?
Say the question again?
If you were to be shown several photographs of a man's middle finger with a cut on it, could you pick which one it was that you saw on my desk?
No.
To this day, do you have an independent recollection of exactly how that finger looked
No.
on that photograph?
No.
Mr. Shapiro? Yes.
All right, objection. No foundation. This is legal.
It's cross.
Actually, it's cross, but it's
Overruled.
foundation, no.
Overruled.
May I show you two photographs? Sir, may I approach, Your Honor? They've been marked People's Exhibit 123 and People's Exhibit 123A. Ask you to look at those photographs. On June 12th at 11 o'clock, did you see O.J.'s finger in that condition?
Objection, that seems facts, not evidence.
Overruled.
No.
Did you observe whether or not, did you observe him as he entered the limousine?
No.
Did you observe him just prior to entering the limousine?
I saw him.
Was he sweating?
I couldn't tell.
You previously answered to that question he was not?
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you testified before the grand jury on page 93, line 6, 7, and 8. Recall Ms. Clark asking you a question. When you saw him later that night and he was getting into the limo, he was getting ready to go, did he seem hot or sweaty? Do you recall her asking you that question?
Yes, sort of.
And let me show you that question and answer on your grand jury transcript. Does that refresh your memory
Yes.
as to what your answer was as to whether or not at the time O.J. Simpson got into the limousine, was he hot or sweaty? What was your answer?
I said no.
And does that refresh your memory as to what his condition was?
Objection, I asked that the witness be permitted to complete the passage. Take that free, just-
All right. Hold on. Finish your question and answer, Mr. Shapiro.
Does that refresh your memory as to what his condition was, whether he was hot or sweaty on that evening, getting into the limousine?
Yes.
Is there anything else on that page that would help you in that area?
Can I read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no Ms. Clark wants him to read the whole page. Is that, if that's her desire, Your Honor?
Ms. Clark?
I just wanted to be able to read everything pertaining to
Go ahead,
that motion.
read the whole
A question?
page to the jury.
It said question, when you saw him later that night and he was getting into the limo, he was getting ready to go. Did he seem sweaty or hot? Answer, no. Question, you don't recall that? Answer, I don't recall that.
Slow down.
Oh. Next question was, were you sweaty or hot at that time? Answer, no. Question, at any time that night? Answer, no.
Okay, I think that
Did-
completes the area on the examination. Thank you very much. Nothing further.
Ms.
Why
Clark?
don't you just go ahead and read a couple more lines there, Mr. Kaelin. Did I ask you then? Read along with me. Did I ask you then, did you, at the point when Mr. Simpson was getting ready to leave for the airport, did you get a close look at him in the light? Answer,
No.
no. Your answer was no, is
No.
that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you said, it was dark outside and the house wasn't, the lights were probably not, it wasn't lit up, the house. You recall giving that answer?
Yes,
Was that correct?
yes,
Question, and you had contact with him, would you call it brief or would you call it lengthy at that point? And your answer, it was rushed. Yeah. You recall giving that answer?
yes,
Then I asked you, did you spend a lot of time trying to observe him at that point? And your answer, no. You recall that being your answer?
yes,
And is that correct?
yes,
And did you make any effort to observe the defendant's hands as he was getting ready to leave for the airport in the limousine?
no.
How much time did you spend with the defendant from the moment you saw him by the limousine until he left for the airport?
Brief. From the time that he, say the question again?
From the time you saw him standing near the limousine till the time he left for the airport, how much time elapsed between those 2 points?
Total about 5 minutes.
And during that 5 minutes, what was on your mind, foremost on your mind?
The noise that I had heard.
Were you making any effort to carefully observe the defendant's hands?
No,
Or his face?
no,
Or his body?
no,
Were you looking and watching him?
no.
Do you remember seeing the Bronco at any time on June the 12th?
No.
Was that something that you would have made any effort to observe?
No.
Was the Bronco pretty much a fixture at the Rockingham location?
Yes,
Something you saw every day?
yes,
If it had been parked, I think you indicated earlier that it was normally parked on Ashford,
yes.
and how do you know that?
Because I wouldn't always park my car in Ashford, and I always park it by the Bronco. So normally my car would be on Ashford by the Bronco.
And did you going to your car, was that a daily occurrence for you when you lived on Rockingham?
Yes,
So it would be a daily occurrence that you could observe the Bronco parked on Ashford as well?
if it was there, yes.
And so is it your testimony, sir, that you normally observe the Bronco parked on Ashford?
Yes.
Can you tell us when you saw it parked somewhere else and where?
It could be in the driveway. And
When would it be in the driveway?
I don't know. Have you finished your answer?
Gigi sometimes, if she went to the market, it would be in the driveway. She'd be ready to take it. So it was in the driveway once, and I had to help her move it because she couldn't do it. But
So you
most of
remember-
the time, it would be on Ashford.
Okay. So you remember once it was in the driveway when Gigi had taken it to the store?
Yeah, I mean, it was more than once in the driveway, a few times, but the percentage-wise, mostly on Ashford.
And what percentage is that?
85 to 90% usually in Ashford.
Okay. Do you have any specific recollection of when you ever saw it parked on Rockingham? Other than June the 13th?
I mean, I don't remember it, no. It could have been, but I don't remember it on Rockingham.
Now, you spent about a week, I think it was your testimony you indicated you spent a week with Nicole in Aspen.
Yes,
And then was it the following month that you met her at the party at her house on Gretna Green?
Yes.
I think you indicated to Mr. Shapiro on cross-examination that the defendant was never upset about Nicole dating other men. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Is that what you believe? Is that the truth, Mr. Kaelin?
He never let on that he was upset about her dating.
October 25th, 1993. You recall coming home to the Gretna Green location and seeing the defendant outside the house.
Yes.
And did you see his car parked out front?
Yes.
Which car was that?
The Bronco.
The white Bronco?
The white Bronco.
And where was it parked?
It was in front of the Gretna Green driveway and the flashers were on.
Was it parked in the street,
It was in the street.
blocking the driveway?
Yes, part of the driveway. Yes.
Was it out in the street as opposed to being next to the curb?
Yes.
So the Bronco was parked out in the street, blocking the driveway with the flashers going when you got there, is that right?
Yes.
And when you got to the house, what could you hear?
There was yelling.
Who was yelling?
OJ.
Yelling loud?
Yes.
And who was he yelling at?
Nicole.
And where was he?
Well, there was some movement, but it was at usually the back of the French doors. I don't know if you have a picture, but it's the guest house at Gretna Green was behind, and 15 feet would be the French doors to the den area.
Mm-hmm.
And he was yelling from there.
So he was yelling behind the house, behind the French doors?
Well, the doors are open, so yeah, it was. Yeah, step in and then out.
Those doors were not just open, were they, Mr. Kaelin? They were broken open, weren't they?
Yes.
The lock was broken, wasn't it?
Yes.
And what was the defendant yelling about?
There was an argument about pictures that was up in Nicole's house.
Picture of a former, someone she used to date, isn't it?
Someone she dated.
And the defendant was very upset about seeing that picture in her photo book, wasn't he?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Was the defendant angry and upset about seeing the photograph of someone she had been dating in that book?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
What was the defendant upset about with regard to that photograph, Mr. Kaelin?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Didn't the witness just testify?
How about we start from the basic, what he was upset about?
You indicated, sir, that there was an argument about pictures, didn't you?
Yes.
All right. And that was a picture of who?
I don't know who the picture was, which person it was exactly.
In general, who was it? What was it?
A guy.
Overruled.
What kind of guy?
Overruled.
What kind of guy can you?
What did the defendant tell you?
Oh, it was a boyfriend, former boyfriend.
Of Nicole's?
Yes.
And why was he upset? Why did he tell you he was upset about seeing that photograph in her book?
Because I thought at that time they had a semi-commitment where his pictures were down of girls, that her pictures should be down.
Is that what he told you?
That's what the argument was.
And how angry was he that day, Mr. Kaelin?
Angry. He was yelling. The police came.
Would you say he was very angry?
Angry enough for the police to come. Yes. Came.
Certainly.
And then in Christmas of 1993, You recall that there was an argument that night also,
Yes,
and I believe you testified on cross-examination that you went to the Jenner's house for that party with the defendant and Nicole and their children. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And then you testified shortly after arriving there, Nicole said it's time to go.
Yes,
Before she said that, sir, did you see a gentleman by the name of Joseph Perulli enter the house?
I think he was already in the house.
Yes, before you left.
Oh, yes, before we left.
And was it shortly after he entered the house that Nicole said it's time to go?
Yes,
And who is Joseph Perulli?
an ex-boyfriend
Of Nicole's.
of Nicole's.
And after she said, come on, let's go, did you all go back in the car?
Yes,
And once you were all in the car, did the defendant say something to Nicole?
there was something going on. Yes, there was an argument, and it was, I guess, about him being there.
About Joseph Perulli being
Joseph. I don't know his last name, but that might have been it. I didn't know his last name.
there? The defendant, was he angry with Nicole?
Yes,
Was he angry about Joseph Perulli being there?
yes.
And what did he say to her?
I don't know the dialogue, but it was that he was at the party and he shouldn't have been.
Did Nicole invite him to the party?
I don't know who invited him.
Who gave that party?
The Jenners.
And you indicated that they were also talking about some flowers that had been delivered for the defendant?
Yeah, I don't know the exact story in the flowers, but an ex-girlfriend, I thought, delivered flowers to OJ.
Those flowers from Paula?
I think so.
So was the defendant yelling at Nicole on the way home from the party?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
How was the defendant behaving with Nicole on the way home from the party?
Well, there was yelling, and it was off because there were children back, and we were back, and we're saying it's Christmas Eve, so it kind of refrained from the yelling in the car.
So they tried to keep it down in the car?
Yeah, it subsided.
And then they went, when they got home, they had dinner?
We all had dinner.
And how was Mr. Simpson and Nicole behaving during that dinner?
Well, the fighting wasn't going on. It was quiet. It was Christmas Eve, very quiet.
Do you recall making a statement to the effect that there was no talking to those two during that dinner?
There was no talking, right?
And-
It started out that way, and I think at the very end it just got better. Of the Christmas Eve with the present opening.
For the children?
Yeah, we're shooting a video, and
Was the defendant speaking to Nicole during the dinner?
no,
Was Nicole speaking to the defendant during the dinner?
no, I don't believe so.
Now, during the grand jury testimony that you gave in this case, counsel page 52, do you recall my asking you whether or not you had ever observed the defendant and Nicole have a fight or an argument?
Yes,
And do you recall what your answer was to that question?
can you show me?
First, I want to ask you.
I
you
think we
recall?
talked about what we just talked about. There was a 911 call.
Did you tell me at that time that there was a 911 call?
I believe so.
I'm going to show you the page, Mr. Kaelin. He asked you to point out to me where you said there was a 911 call.
Sustained. Want to rephrase your question?
Do you recall my asking you before the grand jury whether you ever saw the defendant and Nicole argue or fight?
Oh,
I'm
ask the
sorry.
question.
Did I see them fight?
No, I'm asking you, do you recall being asked the question that's shown in that
Yes.
transcript?
Yes.
And do you see your answer in that transcript?
I saw that there was one. Right.
That there was one. And where in that transcript do you see that you told me that there was a 911 call as a result of that argument or fight?
I'm going to object, it wasn't asked.
Sustain.
Your Honor-
No, that's a speaking objection, Mr. Shapiro. Please refrain from that. Curious to disregard that comment. Ms. Clark.
Mr. Kaelin, did you not just tell me that you recall testifying to the fact that there was a 911 call to before the grand jury?
Objection to state's evidence.
Overruled.
Do you recall testifying to that just now, sir?
There's a 911 call?
I'm going to read your answer.
Okay.
The answer was, I believe so.
Thank you. Do you recall, now, did you tell me in response to the question I posed to you before the grand jury as to whether or not you'd ever seen defendant and Nicole argue or fight?
Yes.
Do you recall did you tell me that there was a 911 call as a result of that fight?
It doesn't say it on there.
Did you tell me, and did I ask you also before the grand jury, do you recall the nature of the argument or just that it was one? And do you recall what your answer was?
That there was an argument?
Refresh your recollection of this answer on line 19.
Oh, that I said that it was one?
That it was one.
Right. Just so I know, that's the one I was talking about was the 911, I believe.
But you didn't say it there.
No.
And when I asked you, do you recall the nature of the argument or just that it was one? You did not tell me that you came home to find the defendant screaming behind the house and that the police were called, did you?
Sustain.
Did you give me any of the information about the police being called when I asked you about the nature of that argument?
Objection, Your Honor. It's testimony before a grand jury, not in this law.
Overruled.
Say it again.
You can ask the question.
Please ask it again.
Did you tell the grand jury, when I asked you the question about the nature of the argument, sir, did you tell the grand jury that you had heard the defendant screaming behind the house and that the police were called?
Objection, Your Honor. It was never asked that question.
He was asked.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember saying that?
No, because I would have said that.
And did you see that in the transcript here,
Yes?
where you said that the police were called?
No, it doesn't say that in there.
And when I asked you about the nature of that argument, did you respond to that question before the grand jury that O.J. called Nicole a bitch?
That I said that?
Right. Did
No.
you ever say that?
No.
Did you respond to the question concerning the nature?
Wait. Let me see counsel at the sidebar with the reporter, please. Counsel proceed. Madam Court Reporter, do you need to change paper? All right.
During the Christmas of '93 argument, do you recall discussing that matter with Mr. Shapiro?
I probably did.
Now, when Mr. Shapiro on June 14th interviewed you, do you recall him asking you the following question? During the time that you were living at the residence with Nicola and OJ, did you ever see them get into any type of fight? You recall that
Yes.
question? And then you asked, when I was living on Gretna Green, do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was a question you were asking him.
Okay.
You remember that?
Yes.
And then he answered yes.
Yes.
And then you went into, you immediately responded. Tell me if you recall responding as follows.
Okay.
I never saw them fighting. The only one occasion was when I drove in. I didn't see the fight, but there was an argument going on. And I got there and said, you guys don't be fighting and shouting like that. And I brought OJ to my guest house and back. And when he was in the guest house and back, before I knew, there was police there. So obviously someone had made a call. Do you recall telling him all that?
Yes.
And when I asked you before the grand jury, did you ever observe them to argue or fight? Your answer was, I saw them close and I saw maybe an argument. And I asked him, where was that? You said on Gretna Green. And when I asked you, do you recall the nature of the argument or just that it was one, you recall giving the response that it was one. And then I asked, was that the only time you ever saw an argument between them? And you answered yes. You recall that?
Yes.
So you didn't tell me about a fight on Christmas Eve, did you?
No, I'll tell you what.
Sustain and phrase the question.
Did you tell me about a fight on Christmas Eve when I asked you about the argument, whether you observed them to argue or fight?
Ms.
In-
Clark,
in
I'm
the-
sorry, hold on, Mr. Kaelin. I think I need to ask you to be a little more precise in the language because we're differentiating here between arguments and physical confrontations, aren't we?
I was asking the question in generic, as probably I think Mr. Shapiro was as well, to see what.
Well, I mean, then it's a vague question because there are verbal fights and there are physical fights.
But the point is the difference in the response.
Well,
to the
all right.
vague question.
I'm just asking you to be a little more precise.
Okay, I'm
Thank
just
you.
quoting my own question. You weren't there to rule on it before the grand jury. I wish you had been.
By the way, what was the date of the grand jury proceeding?
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me, record it.
So the jury can know what came first.
That would have been, I believe, 20, I'll make sure. Where are we at?
All right, Ms. Clark, do you have much more?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's your time estimate at this point?
Minute.
time estimate at this point?
About half an hour.
All right, let's finish. Madam Reporter, are you okay?
When I asked you before the grand jury in June of 1994, that'd be June 20th of 1994, after your June 14th interview with Mr. Shapiro, when I asked you, did you ever observe them to argue or fight, did you tell me about the Christmas Eve argument?
No, I did not. Can I say something?
You can?
When this was going on with the grand jury and everything was happening, there'd be nothing I'd hide from you. My mind was with everything that if I remember something, I would have told you about a 911 call and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't something I wasn't trying to not tell you. Because I know if it's a 911 call, that it'd be a report. So there's nothing I tried to hide from you about any of the fights. There was so much I had so much time. I was in front of all these people. So then I remember more, and that's when we had these meetings. I would tell you stuff that I remember something else.
So are you telling us now that you felt intimidated by the grand jury, Mr. Kaelin?
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I don't know if intimidated is the word, but I try to remember everything that I could.
Do you remember telling me, Mr. Kaelin, that you had thought being in front of the grand jury would be intimidating, but it turned out to be just a bunch of old guys in fishing caps?
Yes. But I was yes.
Not real intimidating.
No, I was looking at you. I was just in a room that I've never been in court.
Okay. But when Mr. Shapiro asked you the question, as to whether you saw Nicole and O.J., did you ever see them get into any type of fight, you told him about the incident on Gretna Green where the 911 call was placed,
Yes.
didn't you? You told him about the police arriving, didn't you?
Yes.
You told him about the fight on Christmas Eve, didn't you?
Yes.
May I object to the categorization of fight based on your honor's previous?
Well,
Argument.
I think
Argument. I'm
Argument.
sorry.
jury knows the distinction between the two. Yes.
Now, do you also recall discussing with Mr. Shapiro during that June 14th interview how Nicole felt about you moving out to live at Rockingham instead of staying with her on Bundy?
Upset with me.
Do you recall telling him about that?
Yes. That
Go ahead.
O.J. was manipulating me.
June 20th was the testimony before the grand jury.
All right.
And do you recall that there was an agreement at one point that Michelle was to leave the house whenever Nicole was around?
Yes.
Do you recall that there was an argument that after that slap that you referred to, Michelle made a derogatory remark about the children, Justin and Sydney?
Yes.
And Michelle did not leave the residence that day, did she?
No.
You also recall that Michelle was the one who opened the door to let the defendant into the room to beat Nicole in 1989?
Objection.
Yes. last question answered to Mr. Kaelin regarding his knowledge as to events in 1989. If you recollect, Mr. Kaelin has testified, and it appears to be undisputed in the record, that Mr. Kaelin was not acquainted with anybody in this case until January of 1992. I've sustained the objection to the case. You are to completely disregard the implication suggested by that question. There are some other matters I need to take up. I don't know if the bailiffs had told you, but we are going to be dark as far as this case is concerned tomorrow. I have 2 other cases I have on my calendar that I anticipate are going to take the full day for me to handle, plus some other matters on this case, so we will not be in session tomorrow. We will stand in recess now as far as the jury is concerned until 9 a.m. Monday morning. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you with regards to the case. Mr. Kaelin, you may step down. You are ordered to return Monday morning, 8:45. All right? Thank you, sir. Also, do not discuss your testimony with anybody except for the attorneys in the case and your own counsel.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we'll stand in recess for 15 minutes, and then I'll see counsel on the discovery matters.